Due to ShowPro's aggressive copyright takedown policy, this re-upload will be audio only, with the fully edited version available to my patrons, link in the description below. I didn't have that many Pokemon VHS tapes when I was younger, but the ones I did have I watched constantly. And one of those VHS tapes was the fourth Pokemon movie, Pokemon Forever, and I enjoyed it a lot at that age. So I was actually kind of shocked to find out as an adult that this movie has a particularly negative reputation. Did my latest viewing manage to recapture the nostalgia I had for this film? Let's take a look. 40 years in the past, Celebi, a legendary Pokemon that protects the forest, is being chased down by a Pokemon hunter. Fortunately, it manages to escape into the future using its time travel powers, but accidentally takes a young boy named Sam with him. The two arrive at a point in time when Ash and the others are visiting the same forest that Celebi protects, and Ash and Sam do their best to protect Celebi from an onslaught of thieves trying to get their hands on it, including the infamous Iron Masked Marauder. If you've seen all of my Pokemon videos so far, you may have noticed that with Takeshi Shudo's scripts, he often ends up writing antagonists that really aren't purely evil in any capacity, or have a really good reason for being evil that makes them fun to watch. Unfortunately, with Shudo no longer working on the Pokemon films after the first three, that moral ambiguity seems to have been tossed out completely. This film is entirely a black and white good guys versus bad guys movie, and while that isn't an inherently bad trait to have, it feels way too simplistic as a follow-up to the Shudo trilogy. Iron Mask is about as generic bad guys get, and the only thing that kept him remotely interesting was the fact that he was voiced by Dan Green, who basically turns every role he touches to gold. I mean, the guy's main weapon is called a Dark Ball, and its power is to turn normal Pokemon into evil Pokemon and boost their power to the highest level. This could have been used as a great point of discussion about the nature of Pokemon themselves, which the main TV series has actually discussed several times, and even a discussion about what pushing a Pokemon to its limits can do and what the consequences of that are. Instead, it plays out in the most generic way possible and does absolutely nothing to challenge the viewer. Technology is bad, man is bad, power of friendship saves all, yawn. Aside from that, there's just a lot about this movie that seems really off. Ash seems like more of a dick than usual, Misty gets sidelined with an injury for like a quarter of the film, Suicune's special power that's discussed early on ends up being completely useless, the flow from scene to scene is clunky and jarring, and the dialogue constantly spells out every single detail for you. It actually got pretty annoying to consistently hear things that I just witnessed explained to me like I was 4 years old. With the side characters, Sam ended up being way more generic than I remembered him. There's honestly nothing about him that stands out aside from the big twist at the end. I won't spoil it for you if you still haven't seen it yet, but I still think it's actually a pretty good twist, though it does raise some really weird questions about some other spoiler-related stuff. Everyone else in the movie has almost nothing to offer and is completely unmemorable. Even Celebi wasn't that fun to watch. Its voice was kind of annoying most of the time and it didn't really have that much personality. It really ended up being more of an object/MacGuffin rather than a living, breathing Pokemon. The animation also took a huge hit for this film. While the traditional cell animation is still mostly solid, there's also a ton of really bad early 2000s CG. When it was just used as background or as part of the sets, the CG in the Pokemon movies was fine, but here it's being used everywhere. The background, the foreground, and even the Pokemon. And it just looks terrible. Which is pretty disappointing because there's so much potential in this forest setting for some truly spectacular artwork. As for the soundtrack, this one definitely isn't as memorable as its predecessors. I get that Shinji Miyazaki is basically cranking these things out constantly now, and there are a few cool piano melodies, but I can't even hum them to myself right after seeing the movie. Perhaps it's because of the movie itself, but this soundtrack just doesn't have the same punch to it as the previous ones. Overall, I'm both surprised and not surprised that I didn't end up liking this one that much as compared to my youth. Celebi used to be one of my favorite Pokemon because I loved the design and concept, but this movie just wasn't a good showcasing of Celebi's appeal, which actually makes me kind of angry now that they pulled Celebi out of the TV series so that they could make this movie. Remember the GS ball? That was supposed to have Celebi in it. In any case, if you're curious about rewatching this one yourself, trust me when I say that it should stay firmly in the past. That's it for this video. Before we tackle the final film in the Kanto Johto saga, we'll be taking a detour to check out another made-for-TV special, Raikou the Legend of Thunder. And don't forget to check out my other content while you wait. Special thanks to Jan Rogalski, Rourke Tenjoin, JJJ User, and all my other patrons for their generous support. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.